Baba's already been here. G Money, Mario, Jenna. All right, we'll let Jenna in.
So I completely agree with your standpoint. Myself, I am a Norse pagan. I believe there is a documentary that is from a scientific standpoint that proves your point. A lot of Christians don't believe that it was actually rooted in paganism. And there's a lot of templates and a lot of plasters that they have found in Rome from Roman soldiers who were hiding the fact that they were Christian. If Pompeii never happened, Christianity wouldn't have spread as rapidly as it has.
What did Pompeii have to do with it?
Pompeii, it's a natural disaster that's going to spread because it changed the way that they viewed things. So they looked at their gods were angry. So it causes a natural disaster. So a lot of them started to convert to Christianity.
Well, so I don't think Christianity, I think Pompeii could have sparked, because I believe Christianity didn't even start until after 70 CE, and Pompeii was in 79 CE, I think, and only 9 years after the Jewish War. And I believe, and this is really what most scholars think, that the Gospels were written in the latter half of the first century, and that's possible. But at least the gospel narrative was started at that time. I believe Luke was written in the 2nd century and Matthew was after that. But so there were certainly people talking about this Jesus story in the late 1st and the early 2nd century.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, I just got done watching an amazing documentary because I'm rooted in Norse pagan, I like to research other religions, and they all coincide. There's so many similarities in all the religions. Just like the guy who was talking about the 7 days. Well, in my path, each day was represented by a god or goddess. So that theory is kind of flawed, but it's on Amazon Prime. It's called The Secrets of Christianity, and it's actually a scientist that is deep diving into the stories of the Bible, and he debunks a lot in the Bible. A lot, and it's coming from a scientific standpoint.
Right, and so there's a lot of people doing a lot of good work. Christ Before Jesus, I'm reading their book that's out, and they've applied stylometric analysis, which is an accepted, proven, method of scientific analysis of linguistics and texts, and you can find out if these things were written at certain times by certain people, or if there's any consistencies, or if people are adding to it over different times, and you compare the Christian writings to other writings, to pagan writings, and you say, oh my goodness, look, these are the same thing. So you say, where did this baptism in water come from? All of a sudden in Christianity, let's start dunking people underwater to wash them clean of their sins. This was not in Judaism. They didn't do that. They offered animal sacrifices for the forgiveness of their sins, not dunking them in water. But the pagan religions, the Mithra cult, they did that. It was a spiritual ritual that they did to initiate people into the cult, which is the exact same thing that Christian baptism is. So these things were just pulled from pagan, cultures and religions and cults and stuff.
Correct. I completely concur with that. Even the holidays follow the solstices. They weren't just, created because someone decided, hey, we're just going to have Christmas be the birth of Christ. That's the winter solstice, or in my belief, it's Yule. So it's not uncommon to have all of these religions cross-sect with other religions Just like Judaism versus Christianity, they are sister religions, but yet Christians do not believe in Lilith, even though Lilith was written. And granted, that's all faith-based. If you believe it, you believe it. If you don't, you don't. You're not going to sway anyone one way or the other. But,
so let me just say something before you get too far from what you said. So when you said Christianity and Judaism are sister religions, I would not use that term. I would say Christianity is the replacement for Judaism by their enemies, by the Jewish enemies, because this is what happened. Rome and Israel fought a war. Israel lost, and then the only thing that remained was Rome and the Roman religions that they created to replace Judaism. So sister implies that they are compatible, but they're not. The Old Testament says God would never ask anyone to sacrifice their son or daughter. He says only pagans do that sort of thing. If whoever sacrifices their son or daughter is sacrificing to demons. And he says God hates the shedding of innocent blood. But then all of a sudden in Christianity, God sacrifices his own son. And he sheds the innocent blood of his own son. So it's contradictory. And the reason it's contradictory is because the enemies of the Jews wrote it. The enemies of the Jews were the Romans.
Right.
Well, I'm going to cycle through. Did you have any final remarks you want to make before I pick up somebody else?
No, I just completely agree with what you're saying, and keep doing what you're doing, sir.
All right, appreciate it, Jenna. All right, who's next? Morning Glory, you want more? You gonna tell us more about the half woman, half cow? I appreciate the comments, everybody. I appreciate the support. Y'all double tap the screen. You may forget to double tap the screen, but TikTok needs to know that you like the video, so it's free. It doesn't cost anything. Just double tap that screen. I usually shoot for 50K, so I know that's a long way from right now, but honestly, 50K, that's only 100 likes for 400 people, and you can get to 100 likes real quick. Just double tap it like this with two fingers, and if everybody did that, I'd be at 50K. And then I'd say, everybody just take a break, no more liking the stream, just pay attention to what we're talking about. Yes, Sharon, what's up?
What's up, bro? How you doing, bro?
I'm good.
Well, I've been meaning to come on and talk to you for a while. I really understand a lot of what's going on. I grew up Hebrew Israelite, and then I started doing my own research. And I understand the doctrines of man because this is a wicked system, and it teaches people how to break the law and not do the law. Reading this book, which is the Book of Baal, which we call the Bible, no one can really gain that being perfect because the laws are all contradicting each other. So there's no way in the world that you can become that perfect being, or that Jesus, this character that they created in the Bible, being that his doctrines do not coincide with the doctrines of Jesus. Of his so-called father.
Right.
So
two different things.
Basically, yes, it's two different. It's all of them. The whole thing is contradicting, and I'm just trying to put my finger around how in the world that people are not seeing this, or they're just basically just talking what's being told in church and not really doing their own studying.
Yeah, and I think in the near future, this is going to explode, and people are going to be, oh my goodness, I can't believe, because I believe this stuff, for 30 years I was a Christian, but I was always seeing problems, but everybody sees the problems. They just push the problems aside, and they try to hold on to this faith, because they're threatened that if they reject the faith, they're going to burn in hell. I just had one of my best friends of my entire life send me an email the other day because he saw a comment that I made on Facebook saying that I'm no longer a Christian and I don't even believe in God anymore. They're like, oh my goodness, you're going to burn in hell. I don't want you to burn in hell. And like, maybe you should actually think about whether what you're told is true or not. And maybe you should ask me why I changed my mind. Instead of just saying that I'm going to burn in hell, maybe I'm right. Why don't you study it? They're like, no, I can't study it. You're just wrong. You're going to burn in hell if you don't change. So this is what brain dead slaves do. They just obey their master. Right. They don't ask questions.
It's a slave book. It's meant to keep you in bondage and not be a free person, a free-minded individual. It forces you to do their will and not the will that you was created to do. Like, whatever I speak, that's my will. I bring it into existence. So therefore, that in all makes me God. If you put it like that, because basically I'm out here creating, and no God is out here with me but myself.
And so Christians and believers, Bible believers, ought to immediately reject the Bible. When you take them to Exodus 21:20, that says, if anyone beats their slave with a rod, as long as they don't die within a day or two, they don't even get punished because the slave is their property. And then they say, oh, that's Old Testament. Then you turn to 1 Peter 2:18, it says practically the same thing, that God actually likes it when slaves take their unjust beating from harsh masters, as long as they just take their beating with patience and faith. So it's okay to beat your slaves according to the Bible. And even Christians will admit, oh yes, I'm a slave of Jesus. And because Jesus said that you're either a slave to whoever you obey. You either obey Satan and you're going to be tortured in hell, or you can obey me and then I'll bring you to heaven. And so they say, oh well, I'll be a slave to Jesus then. They don't even consider the third possibility, that you could actually be free and not be tortured. How about the people that wrote the book are liars? Maybe you should consider that.
See, one thing they did when they implemented this book, it was basically instill fear first. That's where you got the Christians going out killing people and things like. I mean, it's not just the Christians. I'm not even just gonna say Christian. We talking about all religions, because all religions came and did stuff like this. They went and killed people just to instill fear.
Don't say the KILL word. That's a bad word.
Oh,
you can't say that word on TikTok.
My apologies. But they all went out and did these things, and to instill fear and say that their God is the Almighty over other people's gods.
So nobody ever comes up with a God that's loving and kind and good. Every God is always evil and threatening and will torture you if you don't obey him. That's what every God does. So I'm not interested in being manipulated with fear and being told that I'm going to be tortured if I ask a question. Like, no, I don't want to worship a God like that. Why do you, or not you, but why does other people want to worship a God that threatens to torture you if you don't meet all his demands?
That's not a loving God. And everybody, what we come to do as people is basically create God in our own mind, and think that that's what it is. The God that we think in our mind by reading this book is not the God of creation. That's not the God of everything. Whoever this is in this book,
So if we have to find out who God is by reading a book that somebody wrote, I would say this is not the way God would demonstrate his existence, by people writing a book. So if God was real, he would demonstrate his presence through his, not just by saying, look at the creation, but by saying, if you're a good person, then I will protect you from evil. If you're a bad person, then I won't protect you from evil. Then we could all say, wow, whenever good things happen, there would be an invisible force that rewarded good behavior and punished bad behavior in this life. But yet, this world is ran by evil people that never get held accountable, and the good people of the world are getting trampled on. And God just sits by and watches and never stands up for what's right.
And like all religions always have some kind of a comeback. Well, God, he He's doing it to teach you a lesson. Why would he teach me a lesson of pain like that? That's not no lesson that I want to learn.
And it doesn't prove that your God has any power either. So, allowing you to endure great pain and suffering and hardship does not demonstrate the power of God. That just demonstrates nature. Nature is ruthless. Go watch, some nature channels on Discovery or something, and see what happens in the savannah in Africa when they're filming lions and antelope. That doesn't demonstrate God. That demonstrates survival of the fittest.
Right.
Well, hey, let me
share something with you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna cycle through, but I'll give you a final word.
And I appreciate it, but I want to let everybody know what really broke me out of religion was these two scriptures. It was Luke 14:26 and John 4:20 through 21, where Jesus, and Luke chapter 14:26, where he says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father, mother, wife, and children, brother and sister, he can't even follow me. He can't be my disciple." But then he turned right back around in John and says, "Well, you can't love God if you hate your brother and your sister and your mother." And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
What
So the Bible actually calls Jesus a liar, because 1 John 4:20 says, "If anyone says that you should love God and hate your brother, he is a liar and the truth is not in him." Well, Jesus said you should hate your brother in Luke 14:26. So the Bible itself says Jesus is a liar.
It just proved it. I appreciate your time and allowing me to speak. I like to communicate with you one-on-one if you have a chance or whatnot, because I'm also breaking away from religion, and I'm getting a lot of hatred from my own family and people I grew up with, and I'm
so I've got a Discord channel where I want that to be for that purpose, is so we can communicate kind of more on one-on-one level or whatever. So the link in my profile has links to my books, to my YouTube channel, my Instagram, and Discord. So in Discord, it's just a chat app. We can, you can ask questions anytime. I'm always there. I get a notification when somebody says something. I go check it out, and if I have time, I'll answer the questions, or we can just have a voice chat. So, and it's open to all. All you got to do is click the link in my profile and join the Discord, and we can chat there sometime.
Okay. And I appreciate it. Good talking to you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, let's see who's next in the list. I got a whole bunch. Morning Glory, you're going to have to go to the back of the line, and Baba J too, because y'all have already been in here. I'm going to let G Money in. He's on the bottom of the list. He hasn't been in here yet. Hey, G Money. Are you there, G Money? Alright. Well, G Money didn't last long. Baba J, Morning Glory is at the bottom. Reverend Ronald, we'll let him in. Morning Glory, you've already had time. You talk about ridiculous stuff about a half man or half woman, half cow. It's ridiculous. What's up, Reverend?
What? I'm good. How's yourself?
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And Constantine, Emperor Constantine, literally repaganized the Bible. Yeah, in 325.
Well, they didn't even have a Bible in 325.
He took the I off. The Council of Nicaea. Yeah.
They didn't even talk about the biblical canon in the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah, well, that's what they did. They took 14 books out of 80 and made it 66.
Well, no, not at the Council of Nicaea.
Huh?
They didn't do that at the Council of Nicaea. They didn't talk about the canon in Nicaea.
They made the Apocrypha and took the I off and put a J on.
I don't think they had a J even in the 4th century. J didn't exist at that time, so no, that's not true either.
No? Well, I've seen King James with the Apocrypha.
Right, but
And,
that's in the that's in the 17th century. That has nothing to do with Constantine. King James is 1,300 years later. That's two totally different issues.
No, as I say to you, the Council of Nicaea. Well, Catholicism practically repaganized the Christian faith. Yeah, because
Christianity was always pagan from day one. It was created by the pagan Romans. So they didn't corrupt Christianity. Christianity was originally pagan.
that was Gnostic Christianity.
That was all forms of Christianity.
No, not in. Well, there's a difference.
Baptism is a pagan cult ritual. It is not a Jewish ritual. It doesn't exist anywhere in the Hebrew Scriptures. The pagans did that, and so the Greeks and the Romans adopted the pagan cult practice of baptism.
Yeah, and as I say, there's a difference between. I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, as I say, this human religion, the difference is Orthodox. Orthodox Christianity is, you go and you see melanated icons in Russian Orthodox Church and Greek Orthodox Church, and where they got it from was Ethiopia, because the Ethiopian churches, they had sunken pyramids. They date back to the 3rd century. Yeah.
So what is your main point? I'm having a hard time understand what your point is.
Yeah, there is a Coptic Orthodox kosher Christianity in Ethiopia.
Ethiopia accepted Christianity in the 4th century the same way that the Roman Empire did. 4th century.
No. They accepted the Roman adjustment. But they, as I say, the sunken pyramid churches of Ethiopia date back to the 3rd century.
Okay, Christianity, the biggest push for Christianity came in the 3rd and 4th centuries. So this is not, it was, so listen, Reverend.
There is an organic form of kosher Christianity.
Kosher Christianity?
Yeah, because Christ was born to the Israelites.
So I'm saying that Jesus didn't exist at all, that he was created by the Romans, and I've got evidence to support it.
I agree. I agree with that. I quite agree. Jesus, that figure which was formulated in the Bible by Constantine and the Council of Nicaea, is actually Horus. His birthday's on the 25th of December, same as.
All right, I hate to cut him off, but I saw somebody in the comments say he's putting me to sleep. Freighter also, and I agree, he put me to sleep too. Plus, he was saying things that were factually incorrect. And I think he was saying that Christianity's got problems, and so he didn't necessarily disagree with me, but he was saying things that I knew were not factually correct. And he didn't seem interested in correcting his mistakes. So I got a bunch of people in the box that want in, so we'll see who's next. Maul, what's up?
Hi, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. Well, thank you anyway for having me. I think you got about Roman creating Jesus, the figurehead in Christianity. I think you got a point there. But the person, the history, or the story it tend to be related to, that person did exist. I don't think you can deny his existence.
Yeah, you can. The only reason anybody thinks Jesus existed is because Christians say so, but the Christians who wrote about Jesus never even met the man. They were writing about a legendary superhero that they never even met. And it's even written in the Bible in 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 8. You know, they're saying, "Oh, you're such good people because you love Jesus, but yet you never met him." So this is what they were teaching, even in the Bible, that you're supposed to love someone that you have never even seen or met or have any evidence that he existed at all. So this is how they trick people into believing something that they have no evidence for. They threaten with torture if you don't believe it, and then when you do believe it, they pat you on the back and tell you what a good person you are.
I think I 100% agree with you. I think Christianity basically is not about religion. It's a political tool that was used by Romans to get what they trying, to get people on their side. However, the man they trying to refer to, whom they deify, that person did exist, because not only the story of the son of Mary, we call him a son of Mary, it doesn't come only from Christian side. Also, we have it in Islam. And
so Islam comes 600 or 700 years later. Islam has no credibility for testifying of whether Mary or Jesus existed at all. 700 years later, all Islam did was copy from the Bible the things they wanted and cut out the things they didn't and change the things they wanted to change. It is a man-made religion, a man-made book, and it has no credibility whatsoever.
Yep, hold on a second. Are you discrediting anything man-made that not to be purposeful or useless? Is that what you're saying?
I'm discrediting every single thing that man has ever said about God. Yes.
So
because it's mythology.
What is your offer? What is your offer then? Do you not believe that there is a creator, the one who created everything?
So if God exists, he does not want us to know about it, and what we should be doing is just loving our fellow man and trying to solve the problems of the world and not even worry about who God is or whether he exists, because he doesn't want us to know about it.
Where do you take that from, Jeff? That God doesn't want us to know about?
Because I'm 47 years old and I've been searching for God and praying for God my whole life, and he has never demonstrated his existence to me. And I look at the world and I say, God is not demonstrating his existence to anybody else either. The people who claim they know God, all you got to do is talk to them for 10 minutes or less and find out that they don't know God. They just have an imaginary friend.
Yeah, but hold on a second. There is something here. People always, when you talk with some people, they ask you, give me a proof of God's existence. Give me a proof of God's existence. Prove to me that God exists. I think that's a wrong question. I mean, if we think about, for me personally, from my religious side, if we think about God, you cannot give a proof of him, but you can give evidence of him. There are plenty of evidence. Everything is evidence of God's existence.
So what is the evidence? What is the evidence that God told Muhammad that he's going to torture people in hell in a fire for all eternity mercilessly if they don't believe in Islam? What's the evidence that backs up that God actually told Muhammad that he's going to torture everybody who doesn't believe?
Right. Let me ask you first, Jeff. I'm sorry to ask you. What do you think is the purpose of Islam? What is Islam?
To manipulate and control people.
Well, no, that's not right. That is your definition. I give you my definition. You talk about loving each other. Religion is not about, Islam basically is not about us trying to identify, giving a proof of God. It's about my relationship between you and me, for instance. My neighbor, you as a human being. That's what religion came for. And devaluing women and mistreating women, giving husbands the right to beat their wives if they don't obey them, or if they show too much skin. in any environment, you talk earlier on about the laws of nature. That nature has laws.
Does nature say that husbands ought to beat their wives?
Well, I tell you, no, hold on a second. Well,
if you can't reject beating your wife, that it's always wrong to beat your wife, then I don't want to talk to you.
No, listen. What happened is that there is a need to give an explanation to what is happening. There are circumstances. Obviously,
We ran out of time. Let's see. Newhouse Joseph. What's up, Joseph?
Hey, what's up? So, I've watched maybe an hour of you talking before, so I have a basic idea of like where you are on stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I've also, studied, maybe a little more than the average person on stuff like this, and so I kind of learned that, like for example, a lot of stuff in Genesis comes from like ancient texts, like where it's like, that talking about like Enlil or something like.
Right. Yeah, the Sumerian creation myth is very similar to the Genesis creation myth.
Yeah, I mean the scholars will even tell you that's what it is, and then another kind of more, it's almost a fringe thing because I haven't looked into it that much, but I realized that so a bunch of people were saying how the Gospels all are like derivatives of the Book of Mark, right? And then this one dude, gentleman, was saying that the Book of Mark is like it matches up pretty well with the Odyssey, like Odysseus.
Right.
Have you heard that?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. I haven't looked at it, but a guy, I don't know if it was Bullet Holes in the Bible that I saw saying that or somebody else, but something that I've seen recently is that the book of Luke, Luke even starts out in chapter 1 and says, I decided to set things in order of the things that have been written by many other people. I wanted to put it in the correct order. And I need to verify this for myself, but according to what Joseph Atwell says in Caesar's Messiah, it's almost point for point throughout the entire book of Luke that it parallels the story of Josephus's War of the Jews. So Jesus represents General Titus. He started his ministry in Galilee. He fought battles and stuff all throughout Galilee, and then he moved down to Jerusalem, and that's where his ministry ended after 3.5 years. This is the same reason Jesus supposedly had a 3.5-year ministry that started in Galilee and ended in Jerusalem. And the specific battles that they fought and the specific events that Josephus talks about matches up. Not like it's a word for word, but the story is parallel. If you just change the scenery and the date, the events line up perfectly all throughout the entire book of Luke. So this tells you that it is a literary work and not a historical work. That it's I'm starting to think that it was written as a play or like a because the Romans wanted to be entertained. They already destroyed the Jews. Why would they write this story that paralleled the war where the Romans destroyed the Jews? And they said, your Messiah came in all right, but your Messiah just died on a cross and went to heaven. So this is the same thing that happened to Titus, who was the son of God, who was the son of Vespasian. Vespasian was God, the king, the Caesar, and Titus was the son of God who came to Jerusalem with his mighty angels and destroyed the temple, just as Jesus predicted that he would do. But yet Jesus wasn't created until after the war, and he matches up word for word with what actually happened between the Romans and the Jews in war. So it's a Roman mockery of the Jews after the Romans destroyed the Jews in war.
Well, what I was getting at is like with the old story of the Odyssey, like that there's something to that story. Like it's not just like a poem. It's like there's some like mystery or like special knowledge. It almost feels like in old stories like that. You don't think so?
So no, I don't think there's any special. That's Gnosticism, and Gnostics they have the mindset that there is some secret hidden knowledge that if you study enough, or you become enlightened enough, or you're a philosopher. Plato and the ancient Greek philosophers, they thought that salvation came through philosophy, that your salvation was tied to whether or not you could figure out the mysteries of the world. I don't know if they even thought about heaven or not, but to them, their heaven was to come up with some philosophy that would explain something that they didn't understand. In my mind, that all religions are man-made, and that God has never performed any miracle, that there is no prophecy, but people have always ran scams. They would write stuff after the event happened, but they would pretend like a prophet predicted it so that they could manipulate people and say, look, God predicted this long ago, and God told me that you need to, do X, Y, and Z. So this is how leaders would manipulate the people. It's evil. So I don't think there's any hidden truth in there. The only hidden truth is that it's evil. That all this stuff is about powerful people that are lying and manipulating other innocent people. And I want to help the world wake up to this lie, not just the lie of one particular religion, but to all of them. All these religions are for one purpose only: to manipulate and control the masses. That's why they create religion. If God was good, then God would demonstrate who he is to all of us. But he is invisible, he's unknowable, and everybody just creates 1,000 different philosophies as to who he is and what he wants.
Yeah. All right, well, I won't take up your time. Thanks for your input on that, and yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by. Let's see. Stairway.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Not much. How about you?
Can I know where you're from?
America.
America. So what is America for you? What are the Mayan and what are the Tartars which have contact with the North America? Why you destroyed the whole America, man? And now you're talking about religion? It's a man-made? Bro, you make... Sir, I swear you make no sense, man. And pay attention what you're saying. Islam is the last revelation, and we're gonna...
I should have let him in. It sounded like right before I cut him off, he said Islam is the last revelation and we're going to I wish I would have heard what word he was going to say. It sounds like destroy. So that demonstrates to you what the purpose of religion is to manipulate and control. And so he just demonstrated that he is a Muslim and that his purpose is to threaten all who disagree and to say that we're going to conquer the world and you're going to be sorry when we do, because whoever doesn't agree with us is going to endure the wrath of God. This is the proof that religion is evil. Alright, so let's see here. Mario.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Mario.
Hey.
What's on your mind?
Thank you, sir. Hello? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
So, yeah, my question would just be, just before I get to that question, I guess you'd agree with me that the Bible is not evidence for anything because the Bible is simply a claim. It's just a book of claims, right?
Correct, right.
Sure, so you make the statement or the proposition that the Romans created Jesus, and my question to you would be, what would the evidence for that be?
Well, so there's tons of evidence. The fact that the New Testament is written in Greek, the fact that it was written after there was a war between the Jews and the Romans, and the fact that the Jesus of the Bible is contradictory to the actual Hebrew scriptures, and that they had to manipulate the Hebrew scriptures to even apply any of it to Jesus, because what they did is they took stuff that wasn't even prophecies at all, such as Isaiah 53. It's not the prediction of a future at all. It has nothing to do with the Messiah.
Sure. Yeah. We don't disagree on that. Like, the Messianic prophecies is very debatable from the Hebrew Bible. My question would be specifically on the idea of because it's kind of a fringe theory to say that the historical Jesus didn't exist, and it's something that scholars don't support.
Scholars are dishonest.
Yeah, but still, no, I'm not sure if the majority of scholars, at least.
Every one of them who says that there's evidence that Jesus existed as a man is lying. There is no evidence at all that Jesus existed. The only thing there is a book that was written, but yet we've got thousands of books written about Zeus and Hercules and Apollo and what's the guy?
They don't go off of simply writings of Jesus. I mean, then we could consider any writing of Jesus evidence, and that's not what they do. So
that's exactly what they do. That's the only thing they do.
No, that's really not. I don't know if you've read some of the work. I can refer you to, like, from the Verse 2005 and Fox 2005 and Gold 2004. If you read on these publications, they actually go into depth of the criteria for those non-Christian sources to be verifications of Christian claims from the non-Christians. So it's not just the mere fact that they're mentioning Jesus. I know people will bring up things like, very famous writings from non-Christian sources, but that's not what I'm
saying. So who? You talking about Josephus?
No. That's exactly what I'm saying right now. Like, if you speak about Tacitus or Josephus or these people, they merely mention Jesus. But that's not the only criteria that critical scholars use to support the idea of a historical Jesus. That's what I'm telling you.
So I have studied extensively what the scholars say about why they think Jesus existed, and it's 100% of the time is because it said people wrote about him, and one possible way that people create superheroes is take a real person and then attach legends and myths to him. That is one possible way that stories are developed, but that is not the only possible way, and there's actually no evidence that supports that that's what they did for Jesus.
Yeah, so anthropomorphication is not the thing that's, like, relevant in this discussion necessarily, because what is relevant is the criteria for a historical source to be a type of secondary evidence for the existence of Jesus. And that's why the scholarly consensus today is that the historical Jesus, not divine, did exist, and it was not this anthropo-divine creation from the Romans.
So Mario, do you believe that Jesus, that the Bible is accurate when it says that Jesus was a miracle worker who resurrected from the dead? Do you think that happened?
That's a divine claim that we can't verify, no.
Okay, so no, I'm asking for you personally. Do you, Mario, believe that Jesus was a miracle worker who resurrected from the dead?
No.
Do you think that Jesus was a regular human who was a Jewish teacher who just died and they created myths to attach to him?
Not regular, no.
Well, then who do you think Jesus was?
He was probably a very controversial human being that shared things that were controversial to the people that he taught.
Who did he teach?
His disciples, and wherever he traveled, he had, there are various. Do you want me to give specific names of?
So there is one group of people that Jesus said he only had a message for. Who was that group of people that he said, I'm only speaking to these people?
Sure. Before we get to that, can I just ask, how does this relate to the discussion at all?
Because I'm trying to understand what you're trying to say.
What I'm saying is that the criteria, we are speaking on the criteria of evidence for the historicity of Jesus, is not, as you've mentioned, the mere mention of Jesus. There are some other criteria.
Then name one. Well, okay, Mario, name one piece of evidence specifically so we can talk about it that is not something that somebody wrote in a book, but name one piece of evidence that supports the existence of Jesus.
So
other than something somebody wrote in a book.
Sure, we don't have only documentary evidence, we also have circumstantial evidence, unless you want to deny circumstantial evidence existing.
No, what circumstantial evidence are you talking about?
Do you know what? Let's start here. Do you know what circumstantial evidence is?
Yes.
Okay, and how would you understand it in the context of the claims that scholars, including my own...
Mario, listen, we're wasting time. Name a piece of evidence that you think supports the existence of Jesus so we can talk about it.
Sure, circumstantial evidence. That's one type of evidence.
Name a specific piece of circumstantial evidence that supports the existence of Jesus.
Writings between the early Christians.
Okay, so again, my claim is the only evidence for Jesus at all is what people wrote. Is there anything other than what people wrote? If not, then we say, okay, we can narrow it down and say the only evidence for Jesus is that people wrote about it. And then we can talk about that. Is there anything other than what people wrote down that provides evidence of any kind for the existence of Jesus?
So when we speak on the circumstantial evidence for the New Testament, we can speak about archaeological evidence of the people and the places that are mentioned.
Okay, and there is no archaeological evidence that supports the existence of Jesus. There is archaeological evidence that supports the existence of a Jewish temple in Jerusalem. So there was a Jewish temple in Jerusalem.
That's why I asked you if you understand what circumstantial evidence is, because if I say circumstantial evidence and you say there's no archaeological evidence for Jesus existing, then you don't understand what circumstantial evidence is.
You're the one that brought up, Mario, you're the one that brought up saying that there's archaeological evidence. So I say, I agree. There is archaeological... Listen, Mario, we can't talk at the same time. Mario, if we're going to have a conversation, if I'm talking, that means you don't talk. I will give you an opportunity to respond. I want to hear what you have to say, but if we're talking at the same time, then nobody can hear anything. So I think we're agreeing that the only evidence for Jesus is what people wrote. Do you agree to that?
No.
Then tell me something other than what people wrote that provides evidence of any kind that Jesus was a real person.
Circumstantial evidence, such as archaeological evidence of things like the Pool of Siloam, there's the I can't remember how you say it. All right,
so Paul's right there. So let's talk about the Pool of Siloam. So even if the Pool of Siloam is a real place, does that in any way testify that Jesus was a real person?
It testifies that the circumstantial claim of the New Testament gives it some credit. That's the entire point of circumstantial evidence. It's not
okay, but listen, Mario. I will agree with you. Let's say the Pool of Siloam is a real place. That's what it was called. I've seen something that said it was even tied to the worship of Asclepius, which was a healer. That's why they had a tradition that you would be healed in the Pool of Siloam, because it was tied to the cult practice of Asclepius.
I'm fairly familiar. So we've said that we need some criteria to make the circumstantial evidence authoritative, to give some reliability to the New Testament's claims, right? And one of those can be verified by, this is not entire fiction. For example, if you said, but I can write about Spider-Man, or I can write about London or New York, those exist, sure. But the difference, the relevant difference in here is the fact that there is archaeological evidence that supports the circumstances. It doesn't support the claims, sure. We can get to the claims themselves.
Right, so then we will agree that archaeological evidence will support that there was a Jewish temple in Jerusalem, that there was a Pool of Siloam, that there is a Sea of Galilee, that there is a Sea of Tiberias, there was a Caesar Augustus, there was a Felix and Agrippa, that there are real people that are mentioned in the Bible, but that does not mean that Jesus was a real person. I don't think Paul was a real person, or any of the 12 apostles.
Yes, that then from the very start of this conversation, I would have said it's direct evidence, not circumstantial evidence. That's why I made that distinguishment very clear.
But having a Pool of Siloam in no way bears any credibility or testimony to the fact that Jesus was a real person. It only testifies that the Pool of Siloam existed. It has in no way has any bearing whatsoever on whether or not Jesus was real.
So I could give you a similar argument in saying, I don't know you exist, I only know your voice and face on a video.
No, you can see me. You know for absolute certain that either I'm a computer simulation because you're just looking at me on a phone, or
Exactly.
but you would know that even if I'm a computer simulation, that I'm actually engaging in conversation with you. And if I'm a computer simulation, then I'm a very good computer simulation that comes across as a real human.
Exactly.
You
So
have
the point is,
reliable
direct
evidence.
Yeah. So the point is, direct evidence is not only reliable, we also have other types of evidence, unless you obviously deny all other types of evidence and you only...
No, I accept circumstantial evidence, but the existence of the pool of Siloam, in no way... You're talking while I do again, Mario.
I'll ask you a question.
You've got a problem with not listening, because when I'm talking, that means you're not listening. In no way does the existence of the pool of Siloam testify that Jesus was a real person. If you think it does, then you're just a dishonest person who's going around lying to people. That only testifies to the existence of the pool of Siloam.
That's what circumstantial evidence. I think I've made this clear quite a few times.
Mario, it is not circumstantial evidence to support the existence of Jesus.
That's not the point of circumstantial evidence. Can I explain to you what it is? Because it seems like we've had this discussion and you continually circle back to the
Please
fact
explain what you're trying to say about how the pool of Siloam testifies to Jesus.
Okay, so once again, for the fifth time, it does not testify to the existence of Jesus.
Okay,
Also, as
that's the first time I've heard you say that.
Oh, okay, then maybe I've not made it extremely clear.
Yeah, you haven't.
As an aside, I'm not the person of the burden of proof. I'm not making the claim that the Romans created Jesus. I'm rebutting that claim by asking you for the evidence that the Romans did in fact create Jesus, and not for the absence of evidence of Jesus not existing. So just coming back to where this argument started, it was, what is your evidence that the Romans actively created a story of Jesus? And you simply said, oh, it's written in Greek, it's written in this era and this region, and people do this often. That's, I mean, if you...
Listen, Mario, I wrote a whole book showing my evidence. I've got a book, it's called Jesus Kindergarten. You can get it. You're talking when I talk again. You see how you do that? You're not listening. It's not like I'm not letting you speak. I try to give you an answer to the question, and when I start talking, you talk. It's because you're not interested in what I have to say. So why are you in my live if you're not interested in what I have to say? Go read my book, Mario. Read my book, Mario.
Books are claims, not evidence.
I am providing the evidence in my book. I've got a whole chapter on preterism, which says that Jesus was only talking to one group of people at one time, and that he told them that he was going to return before they died. There's a whole chapter talking about what the Bible says that Jesus said. That means that it has nothing to do with us, that we are not who he came to. I've got a whole chapter on philosophy where I talk about what Philo of Alexandria said. So this is actual evidence to the origins of Christianity. This guy Philo lived in the early 1st century, the same exact time that Jesus was supposed to live. This guy was a Jew. He lived in Alexandria, Egypt, but he was a prominent Jew who wrote hundreds of thousands of words, and he wrote about the Logos of God. You know, John chapter 1 verse 1 says, in the beginning was the Word. The Greek word is Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Word and the Logos was God. This is what is called Philo's Logos doctrine. Philo said that there was an archangel of God, the most ancient archangel of God, who was the only begotten firstborn son of God, who was the mediator between God and man, and the high priest of God, the manna from heaven, the door, the way, the truth, the life. All the things that were attributed to Jesus in Christianity were written by Philo of Alexandria before anyone ever heard of Jesus, before anyone ever wrote a single word about Jesus. And this guy lived in the exact same time that Jesus was supposed to live. And he was a Jew who was very well connected with Jerusalem. He would have known if there was an actual living embodiment of his philosophy in Jerusalem during his lifetime. He didn't say a single word about Jesus or Christianity. He was teaching Greek philosophy. He simply interpreted the Old Testament Hebrew Scriptures, not the Hebrew version though, only the Greek, because he was Hellenized and he only spoke and wrote Greek. So Philo demonstrates that the idea of Jesus that became Christianity was taught by Greek philosophers before Christianity was ever a thing. This is hardcore evidence of where Christianity came from, where the philosophies came from Christianity. It was from the Greeks. The New Testament was written in the Greek language by people who were Greek philosophers. It was not written by Hebrew people who had Hebrew cultures. It was written by Greek people who had Greek cultures. This is actual evidence to the origin of Christianity. That people that were alive at the time that Jesus was supposed to live didn't know Jesus existed. And Josephus is another prime example. Josephus was born in Jerusalem. He was a Jew in Jerusalem, and he was born in the 30s, which is the same decade that Jesus was supposed to have been crucified, did all his teaching, and resurrected from the dead. Josephus's daddy would have been an eyewitness to Jesus. But yet Josephus wrote hundreds of thousands of words about the events of the first century and the history of the Jews, and he didn't say a single word about Jesus or Christianity. That is significant. People want to throw it out and say, that's just an argument from silence. Well, the absence of the teaching of Jesus contemporaneous with the life of Jesus, that is hardcore evidence. And if you want to throw it out and say, well, my Lord, the greatest man who ever lived on earth, the people that were alive at the time didn't know about it or didn't think it was important enough to even write about it. But yet people who lived 100 years later, this is the only thing they could think about and talk about. That is hardcore evidence. That people in the 2nd century, the only thing they could ever talk about was this man Jesus. But the people in the 1st century didn't even know he existed. This is how they create mythical figures. And then you ask, what is the motive for the Romans to create this Jesus? Well, there was a war between the Romans and the Jews. Not just one war, but multiple wars. And the Jews were rebelling against Rome because they thought God was going to send them a Messiah, which means an earthly king, an anointed one. It does not mean a supernatural figure from heaven. Every single king that ever lived was an anointed one. So our president, in fact, we would have to say as Christians that Joe Biden is our Christ because he was anointed as our president. He went through the processes, he got the electoral votes, and he put his hand on the Bible or whatever, and he was sworn in as the president of the United States. He is the anointed one. That's what the word anointed means. But the Greeks had a different concept. The Greeks were saying that a Messiah is some supernatural figure from heaven that could only be applied to one person. It has to be a god or a demigod before you can have a Christ. That's not the Jewish concept of a Christ or a Messiah. So the Jews wanted an earthly king to liberate them from Rome. That didn't happen. So the Romans destroyed the Jews, and then the Romans created a wartime propaganda campaign saying that the Jewish Messiah came and died on the cross, and the Jews even rejected their own Messiah, and so this is why God destroyed the temple. The Romans were actually the ones that destroyed the temple. But they wrote a religion to replace Judaism. The people that they just defeated in war when they conquered their people, they destroyed their religion, they destroyed their temple, they unalived the people, and then they created a religion to replace it. This is what always happens. Whenever Alexander the Great went down to Egypt and he destroyed Egypt and conquered Egypt, he created a religion for them to worship Serapis Christos, the Christ, Serapis, because whenever you defeat your enemy, you give them a new culture to incorporate them back into society, but not in the way that they wanted to be before. They have to conform to the victors of the war if they want to be incorporated back into society. So the Greeks created Serapis Christos so that the Egyptians could worship a Greek form of their religion. Then when the Romans conquered the Greeks, the Romans changed the Greek religions. Instead of Zeus, it went to Jupiter. Instead of instead of Hermes, it went to Mercury. So they changed. Whenever you win a war, you get to tell the losers who their god is. That's the way it works. When you lose a war, the winner tells the loser who your god is. When the Romans defeated the Jews in war, the Romans told the Jews who their god was. Their god is not some, all-powerful God in the sky who is going to send them an earthly king to liberate them from Rome. Their God is a dead guy who was crucified and beaten beyond recognition, and he said that you should pay your taxes and that you should obey those who have authority over you. That's what the Romans did to the Jews. They destroyed them, and then they created a religion and said the only way you are allowed to live in this Roman world is if you accept our version of events.